So I began with A Doll's House by Ibsen, spending some hours on merely trying to make a miniature piano and a sofa to go with the naturalistic design I had in mind. Alas, any further than that, my inspiration was severely lacking, and after about 4 weeks I was floundering. I found myself drawn towards a different choice of play to work with. A completely different play. Enron. Enron by Lucy Prebble really is entirely the opposite of my previous choice. I had thankfully read the play prior to this decision, and as soon as I picked it up I could feel the cogs whirring within my mind, already beginning to formulate ideas for a set design. To begin with, I sketched out a few ideas. Just getting them down on paper seemed like a wise idea, as then I could really see whether or not they would work. I wanted to create a dramatic and an imposing set design, and each design somehow incorporating the word Enron or the letter E, so I chose to use Google SketchUp on the computer to help me gain perspective over the sizes of different shapes that could fit within the studio. The idea actually came to me very quickly once I began using the software. I had been listening to music, the soundtrack to David Fincher's movie The Social Network. It had suited as a soundtrack when I originally read the play, and seemed to generate a muse at this time round also. I began putting down levels, staggering them so they could assume either one large piece or the separate sections that they are. After some thought, I then altered the length, width and height of each level, and added extensions to the base one, including a thrust into the audience. The height was consistent with each level, and I chose to colour the set in black. I staggered the top level to the back corner. As it had the largest single surface area, because of its imposing size, I thought it would allow any action position there to come across effectively. When studying photographs from the recent full-scale production of Enron that was on London's West End, it showed me just how different and vastly simplified my ideas were in comparison. I knew from the beginning the differences between my studio theatre production and what had been brought to life by Rupert Gordon and Anthony Ward. As a scenographer, funding was no issue, as I was merely designing a scaled set, but I was still limited to the space, and also had to take into account of where I was to place my audience. The scaled set truly began to take shape from then, literally. Simple division with the preset scale on Google SketchUp then permitted me to cut and shape the black card to the desired sizes. Thankfully, even with all the gluing, I managed to refrain from smearing any on the visible surfaces. There was then my ambitious decision to cover the top level surface with a mirrored sheet. This brings me on to lighting. The highly reflective surface proved to be quite a nightmare, but I was determined to use it. It was just a question of how I worked with it, as I wanted to allow enough light to define any characters or objects that came into the space. The scale figures that I have made were cut out silhouettes, although I had chosen to use images from the original production, taken off the internet. I scaled them to size, printed them off, mounted them on card and cut around their outlines. Uplighting seemed to be the only effective option at this point, so I built a rear wall and a side wall to frame the stage with a gap for the lighting, and cut out entrances and exits in the walls. I wasn't pleased with the gap though, so I decided that it would be worth consulting with the main man himself, Mr. Steeple, the dude. Anyway, after much discussion with regard to the lighting of the set, Tone agreed with me that the gap between the stage and the walls didn't look as effective as if they were set against the stage. He helped me design an overhead rig, which not only suited the staging a lot better, but it was also a health and safety worry deterrent. The rig would be set with each section of the stage able to be lit independently. The simplest parts of the rig are the 3 separately paired profile spots, as they would be shaped to fit the rectangular sections of the stage that they were set above. The Fresnel lanterns over stage right would use red gels, and any light spill will be contained by barn doors so as to only be lighting that particular division of the stage. In Enron, this is to be Fasto's lair, hub of the Phantom Company LJM. The profile spots directly overhead here would be used to light this sector generally, but the red wash only haunts this sector when it becomes raptor infested. Upstage left, the rear corner made up by the largest surface, an addition that I made was to place the Enron's company emblem over the mirrored floor. Cutting and pasting this onto the model was no mean feat. The area represented the main office of the company, but I could not use profile spots in this area as there would be a lack of control with any reflection of light. To get around this, and still effectively light it, 4 pairs of Fresnel lanterns would surround it, 1 pair to each side. The height of the top surface should be just above the seated audience's eye line, so if the Fresnels are positioned precisely with barn doors being used to prevent any upward spill, any glare from the mirror would not affect them, potentially not even if the audience were on slightly raked seating. The downward staggered part of the stage in front of this section would use a similar rig layout to that of Fasto's layer. This would permit multiple different uses, but mostly only the profile spots would be used. My reasoning for this is that there is a lack of definition created with any shape beneath a directly vertical profile spot, and there are numerous moments in the play that I think this effect would be suitable for. As a piece of epic theatre that had been written with specific details of staging and size, my ambition of a production within a studio theatre space had to make some drastic changes. There are particular characters that address the audience or that are related to in a dream state. Brechtian theatre considers these characters as representations of a role in society, an example being the lawyer at the beginning of the play, contributing to the storytelling but set apart from the other characters. The thrust section of the stage assists with the breaking of the fourth wall convention whenever it is required. Due to the lack of resources, I can only give a basic idea of what I wanted to achieve physically, but hopefully the conceptual design gives the detailed idea. Some of the videos here show the lit set, but the lighting is not controlled, shaped or focused. However, even without that, the reflection of light on the mirrored surfaces at least shows the multiple echo effect of the Enron company emblem around the space.
I'm a film nut.